You see someone online making a lot of money. You look at what they do and almost instantly something inside you tightens. You think, I could do that better. Not in an arrogant way, just honestly. You see the flaws. You see the shortcuts. You see how basic it is. And deep down, you know you have more skill, more depth, more intelligence, more raw talent than they do. And yet, there's one brutal fact you can't escape. They're rich. And you're not. That's the part that doesn't make sense. Because your whole life you were taught that talent was the ticket. That if you were smart, creative, gifted, things would work out. You were told the best people rise to the top. That effort plus intelligence equals success. But then you look around the real world and it feels like reality broke the rules. The world is full of brilliant people who can't pay their bills. Gifted artists who are struggling to survive. Sharp thinkers who are stuck in the same place year after year. Meanwhile, people with half the talent seem to be winning the game of life. Better houses, better cars, more freedom, more leverage. And you keep asking the same quiet question. How? This isn't bad luck. It's not the economy. It's not that the world is unfair. And it's definitely not because you're secretly not talented. The real reason is much more uncomfortable. It's psychological. It's about how your mind reacts to being gifted. And if you've ever felt like you're too good to be this broke, you need to hear this, because the gap between your potential and your reality isn't outside of you. It's inside your head. It usually starts early. When you're young and things come easy, people notice. Teachers praise you. Family talks about how smart you are. You get labeled. Gifted. Special. Naturally talented. And at first, that feels good. Feels like safety. But what your brain learns in that environment is dangerous. It learns that success is something you are, not something you do. Your identity becomes tied to being smart instead of being persistent. Being talented instead of being resilient. That's where the trap begins. Because once your identity is built on being good, failure becomes a threat. Not just a setback, but an existential risk. If you try something hard and fail, what does that say about you? Maybe you're not as smart as everyone said. Maybe you're not that special after all. So without realizing it, you start avoiding situations where failure is likely. You stay in your comfort zone. You do things that are easy for you. Things where you can still feel competent. You avoid the messy, awkward, beginner stages of building something real. But the road to money always starts with being bad at something. Every skill that pays well has an embarrassing phase. A phase where you don't know what you're doing. Where you look stupid. Where your output doesn't match your taste. Talented people hate this phase more than anyone. Because your ego won't let you be bad. You'd rather not start at all than start
I'm talented,
and feel
but
average.
broke.
It's
And
time
that
to fix
single
that.
preference
Wow, it's
silently keeps you
working.
broke.
Financial audacity.
Then perfectionism steps in and pretends to be your ally. You have high standards. You know what good work looks like. So when you start a project, you want it to be perfect immediately. You plan. You research. You refine. You wait for the right moment. You tell yourself you're being strategic, that you care about quality. But underneath all of that is fear. Fear of shipping something that doesn't live up to your self-image. People with less talent don't suffer from this in the same way. They already know they're not perfect, so they just start. They send the messy email. They launch the ugly website. They post the imperfect video. They fail publicly, learn fast, adjust, and keep moving. They might fail 10 times, but on the 11th try they hit something that works. And while they were failing forward, you were still at home polishing an idea no one has ever seen. You can't deposit a perfect idea into a bank account. You can only deposit money from things you finished, released, and sold. This is where most talented people get stuck. Confusing skill with value. Skill is what you can do. Value is how much that thing helps someone else. You can be the best painter, the best coder, the best writer in the room, and still be broke if what you're doing doesn't solve a real problem for someone who's willing to pay. Many talented people fall in love with their craft but ignore the market. They believe that because they worked hard, the world owes them something. But the world doesn't care how much effort you put in. It only cares about results. If you're broke, it's usually because you're looking inward instead of outward. You're asking, how good is my work? Instead of, Who does this help? Money flows toward usefulness, toward solutions, toward relief, toward outcomes. To get paid, you have to stop measuring your worth by your talent and start measuring it by your impact. There's also a strange comfort in being the struggling genius. It gives you an identity that protects you from risk. You might secretly believe that money is dirty, or that rich people sold out, that staying broke keeps you pure, that if you ever chased money, it would corrupt your art or your thinking. That story feels noble, but it's a defense mechanism. It's much easier to say you're broke by choice than to admit you're broke because you're afraid to compete. Afraid to put your work on the same scoreboard as everyone else. At some point, you have to decide who you want to be. The pure genius who can't afford rent, or the person who uses their gifts to change their life. Talent and money aren't enemies, but ego makes them feel like they are. Another reason less talented people seem to work harder than you isn't willpower. It's ego cost. When you're talented, every action feels expensive. Every email has to be perfect. Every post has to be insightful. Every project has to be impressive. The entry price for action is high because your identity is on the line. For someone without that identity, the cost is low. They don't mind looking stupid. They don't have a reputation to protect. They move faster because they're lighter. You're wearing heavy armor made of past praise and expectations. They're moving freely. That's why they progress while you freeze. Not because they're better, but because they're not carrying the burden of being special. Your environment makes this worse. If you're the smartest or most talented person in your circle, your brain receives a constant signal that you're safe. You feel successful by comparison. Biologically, that shuts down your drive to improve. You're not lazy. You're evolutionarily satisfied. To break out of this, you need to be in rooms where your current output is at the bottom, where your excuses don't work, where your brain feels a subtle threat to its status. That pressure forces action, not hustle, survival. Talented people also overthink themselves into paralysis. Your brain is fast. You see all the steps, all the risks, all the ways things could fail. You mentally live through the failure before it ever happens. By the time you're done thinking, you're exhausted, so you don't start. Meanwhile, the less analytical person just runs forward, hits the wall, figures it out, and keeps going. They learn by doing. You learn by imagining. Only one of those gets paid. Focus is another silent killer. When you're talented, you're often good at many things. Writing, speaking, designing, leading. Because you can do everything, you try to do everything. 10 projects. 10 directions. No depth. The market doesn't reward versatility at the top. It rewards specialization. The big money goes to the person who is known for one thing. If your talent is spread too thin, it never hits hard enough to matter. You become a light bulb instead of a laser. Bright, but unfocused. Broke is often the price of being interested in too many things at once. Social pressure keeps the trap locked. When people know you're talented, they expect big outcomes. That expectation becomes a weight. You feel like you have to win big or not play at all. Starting small feels embarrassing. Taking a basic job feels like failure. So you stay stuck, protecting a reputation that exists only in your head. The truth is, no one is watching you as closely as you think. Everyone is too busy worrying about themselves. Money also doesn't magically show up just because you do good work. That belief keeps talented people poor. Money is a skill. Pricing, selling, managing, negotiating. If you ignore it, you'll always be controlled by it. Money isn't beneath you. It's fuel. Without it, your talent can't reach the people who need it. A lack of urgency ties everything together. Because you know you're talented, you feel like you have time. Like you can always turn it on later. But time compounds whether you act or not. Every year you wait is progress you don't get back. Talent doesn't stop the clock. The world moves fast, and the skills you have today might not be valuable tomorrow. Acting like you have endless time is one of the most expensive mistakes gifted people make. The world doesn't pay you for what you know. It pays you for what you do. Knowledge sitting in your head has no market value. You have to package it, offer it, put a price on it. And when people don't buy, that's not rejection of you as a person. It's feedback on the offer. If you tie your self-worth to the outcome, you'll stop too early. If you separate them, you can iterate until it works. Many talented people are addicted to potential. Potential feels good, feels safe. It lets you imagine a future where everything works out without forcing you to risk anything today. But potential is just unpaid debt. Promise you haven't kept. The longer you live on it, the heavier it gets. Eventually, it turns into bitterness. You start resenting people who succeeded, telling yourself they got lucky. They didn't. They paid the debt. The shift happens when you stop focusing on yourself and start focusing on the problem you're solving. Money flows toward problems. When your attention moves outward, ego quiets down. Perfection matters less. Action matters more. You become useful instead of impressive. Talent without a system is chaos. You need structure, habits, a schedule, a process for finishing things, a way to show up even when you don't feel inspired. A talented person with a system will always outperform a talented person without one. Being broke is temporary. Being poor is psychological. You don't need permission. You don't need a title. You don't need a perfect plan. You need movement. Pick one skill, one way to turn it into value. Do it badly. Do it publicly. Do it again tomorrow. Stop hiding behind your intelligence. Stop protecting an identity that's costing you your future. Your talent isn't proven by what you could do. It's proven by what you do. And the only thing standing between those two is the version of yourself you're afraid to let go of.